What's up, guys? Welcome back to Southern Maryland Squarebodies. Today we're back to work doing more rust repair on the 87 K5 back here. We'll be doing the floor pans, picking up from where we left off last week. So let's take a look and see where we're at. So you can see we got the front section of floor pans started. We got all of our spot welds done. Got this little section here tack welded in. Going to get this little bit of rust in here cut out and fill this whole gap. Going to probably cut out this little part here so that this little extra patch that I have to make can all be just one panel that I have to weld in. Then, of course, get to work on the back section. And, once we get the back section in, it's a huge patch panel. And that just, it don't take long. And you really close it up once you get that back section of floor in. But before I do anything, I'm going to get these welds ground down on this cross member patch that I made so that I can get it painted and get the paint drying while I'm doing the front section of floor. And that way, once I get my rear section of floor started, the paint's already dry and I can work back here without making a big old mess. Well, let's get to it. If you enjoy what you see today, please remember to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have anything to say. But for now, let's get to work. So the steel that I used to make that patch panel was obviously untreated. It was just bare steel. So use this Rust-Oleum clean metal primer because it was an untreated piece of metal that I was using. So clean metal primer for clean metal. Now I'm gonna get to work cutting out the last little bit of rot in here while the paint over there is drying. And get that last little bit of rot cut out, cut up, trim this piece to make it the size that it needs to be so it's ready to get welded in. Clean these edges up so I can weld to some clean, good metal. Then the foot weld will be done, and I can start cleaning this section up by the trans hump and get that bit of rot cut out there right on the corner. So let's roll with it. Now, when we're doing these projects, the objective is to not spend all the money that you have. Laying your MIG gun down to where it's sitting there feeding wire is a very efficient way of wasting money. Nice. All right, y'all, we got this part tacked in place, looking pretty good. You see this section along the edge and up top here, a little extra that I have to make fit up in there. No big deal. Won't take but a couple minutes to get that worked out. Probably might have seen me using this little flathead screwdriver. This little thing's great because you can get into these little tiny gaps here and manipulate your material so that it's level straight across and you don't have a bunch of dips and valleys. Of course, I'm far from a professional, so even doing that, I'm only accomplishing so much because it's definitely not going to be perfect, but it's a lot better than just trying to swing for the fences and hope for the best. See, I got a little bit of a gap there that I'm gonna have to fill. Same here on this corner. Not the end of the world. You just have to take your time, fill it in gently. Yeah, we're rolling. So let's get this welded all up and looking good. It's always an adventure. Never a dull moment. Kyle got a 4-post lift, so little intermission from the Blazer. Gonna do some sketchy shit and unload this lift. All right, we're back. You might notice I look a little different now. It's actually 2 weeks later. Went down there to help Kyle unload that lift, and that led into other stuff and hanging out, trying to figure out why some things weren't working on the lift, and we got that all squared away. And by the time you hang out, you mess around with some stuff, and you shoot the bull for a few hours. The night was pretty much over, so work came to a stop on the Blazer, and now it's a new day, 2 weeks later, and I'm ready to get back to work. When I left off 2 weeks ago, I just finished welding up this front section of floor, and you see it came out pretty good. I'm happy with it. Of course, I still have to grind out the welds, but that's no big deal. I like to do that at the end, after I get everything welded up. So that's the plan. We'll do that when everything's finished up. I got that rot out of the trans hump cut out, so that's ready to, I'll make a panel for that, a little patch piece for that, and we'll get that taken care of. Then this is a heat shield for where the catalytic converter was, but it no longer has a cat on it, so I need to take this heat shield out of the way so I have access to the bottom of the floor when I'm doing all the seat mounts and stuff. So honestly, I might just leave this heat shield out of the way because I don't intend to put cats back on it. But yeah, I'll get all this stuff cleaned up, vacuumed out, so that there's not rust particles sitting in there for the next 20 years, and we'll clean it up real good and start getting to work, getting this back section of floor put in. All right, we got that skid plate out of the way. Took the shop vac and cleaned up that old rust in there, and yeah, you see we got some kind of a repair on the exhaust here. There was a cat there, now it's a muffler, and we got some mud daubers. Tried to make a home there over the course of the past few years that it's been sitting, but all that exhaust is going to get cut out and it'll all be brand new. That's going to be a project down the road. Not happening right this second, but yeah, let's get rolling on the floor. Something I mentioned in a previous video, this back lip here where it goes up to meet that cross member, on the replacement panel, it's basically a 90-degree bend, and as I mentioned before, the factory lip is very rounded there, so that's going to be something that you have to work with to make fit. Another thing is where the floor pan meets this upright support there, as it sits, it's basically right in line with the lip of the rocker panel. And that's not right, because this has to go under the rocker panel, and it gets spot welded in. So on the other side, I had to cut and notch around here to get it to sit farther back up underneath the rocker. And then one last thing is, there's, a little bit of, it doesn't line up too well here. So that's, where are we at? There we are. That's relatively close to where the floor pan's actually going to sit, but right there, it doesn't necessarily line up. So I think probably have to cut a section out of there and basically scoot, shorten how wide the floor is. No big deal. It's all just cutting and welding. That's what we're doing anyway. But I just wanted to show you those things before I started cutting the floor pan up. So you can see that, and you see what you may have to deal with. I mentioned it before. They don't make like, this is an 87 Blazer. They don't make a 87 to 91 specific Blazer floor pan. And the biggest giveaway of that is the square hole there, where the catch would be for the seat that flips forward. Obviously the 87 to 91 Blazer, and I think even a few years before 87, but they don't have that. They have, 4 bolts, and the seat just slides forward and all that good stuff. So, the 87s don't have a tilt forward seat, but that's the provision for the latch for the tilt forward seat. So I think it's just a generic mold that they use for these floor pans. No big deal. It's just, you gotta work it and make it work for you. It's all good. Let's get started on that. All right, I got the floor pan trimmed enough that I can set it in here and kind of see what we're working with. I basically just went ahead and lined up these ribs to the original floor. Figured the original floor was already there. It didn't really move, so I would trim my panel based on where it sat on those ribs. Got my white paint marker there. I did that on the top and the bottom just so I can see what is overlapping and what I might need to just trim off of the truck side or off of the patch panel side. I cut this out where it goes up underneath the rocker panel because it's way off, as the panel was made. So there's a very large gap there, and it's supposed to sit way down, but even still, with this much trimmed, the flat section of the floor is still overhanging where that lip needs to be that goes under the rocker. So I just need to do some trimming and make it fit basically, and weld that back in place. See back here where I had to cut out about an inch and a quarter maybe to get it past this upright support. So that's taken care of now. Got the floor sitting where everything lines up. Of course, I'm going to have to, well, for one, I cut this a little big. I just eyeballed it when I was making my cuts and made that a little big, but that's fine. I can just throw a little bit of metal in there. But you see the difference between what's factory and what's replacement. So that's that bit that you're going to have to really work with to make it fit nice, but that's okay. As you can see, I got the floor pan sitting out a bit because my intention is to basically just knock it in place, starting at the bottom and knock it in place to where it'll line up enough that I can weld it. So that's why I got that bit of a gap there now where it's sitting forward. So I got basically, enough room, enough material that I can take a hammer and beat it in place. But we're getting there. You see, it looks a whole lot better once you have the floor pan sitting in there. It almost really starts to look like a truck again. So we're going to get to work on, making our fine tuning, our adjustments, and getting this thing welded up. Came in here before I welded in the floor pan. I got that cleaned up and got a coat of Pour 15 on it. Do it now before you can't get to it. Don't forget that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's tedious taking a little bit of metal off here and there, getting things to line up right, make it all look good, but we're there now. We're ready to start welding. So let's see what we can get done. There you go. We got this back section of floor pan tacked in place. Fits okay, not too bad. Got a nice gap there we got to address, and of course that one there, but you'll have that on them big jobs. Ain't nothing but a thing. So that's pretty much what it's going to look like when it's all done. Now, before I get too carried away making it super permanent, I'm going to address all this in here. I need to make that bottom lip where it tucks under the rocker panel fit up in there. Make sure it can tie into the floor pan all the way back to here. Make sure all of that stuff will line up and do what it's supposed to. So I'm gonna mess with that, get that stuff squared away in place, and work on getting it welded in the rest of the way. So there you see I got that bottom lip in there where it sits underneath the rocker panel. Got it sitting pretty good. Looks like it's gonna line up pretty well with the floor pan. Had to do a little bending on the floor pan, but that's all right. It's in there. I think it's gonna work out pretty good, but we're gonna call it a day there because yesterday was my birthday. Lo and behold, my wife surprised me. and my boys showed up. It's time to throw down with some food and some beer.
Throw down some meat.
Have a good time. That's my boy Rob.
What's going on?
My boy Noah. Going to throw down on the grill, drink some beer, have a good time.
Yes, sir.
So thank y'all for watching. Remember, like and subscribe, share if you enjoyed what you saw today. Next video should be buttoning up the floors for good, but for now, we're going to eat and we're going to drink. So we'll catch y'all next time.